ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining Saturday Bhagavatam Katha. We are now on the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavat, and we have now entered the second chapter of the second canto. The second chapter of the second canto is entitled The Lord in the Heart. Sweet chapter. In the first chapter, as we all remember, the Lord, Shukadev Goswami starts his discourse to Parikshit Maharaj, and he gives some very wonderful instructions on an overview of spiritual life and the importance of spiritual life. And he also speaks about how, for those who are attached to material things, how they can gradually be purified by meditation on the Virata Rupa, especially those living entities who are unable to fathom and appreciate the spiritual form of the Lord and find it easier to imagine a form of the Lord based on the material manifestation. They take to the meditation of the Virata Rupa. What is Virata Rupa? Just like we have this Rupa where we can conceive each other. And when I see you, I'm not able to see your soul, but I can see your physical form. So for me, if I'm seeing Vishal, then I'm identifying Vishal not because I can see the soul, because I can see the external form. So it's hard for me to conceive of the soul, because we are so conditioned in this material world. Similarly, for living entities, if it is very hard to conceive of the spiritual form of the Lord, both because of a lack of faith and also because of a lack of transcendental knowledge, then they can conceive of the whole universe as the body of the Lord. Just like our soul is permeating the consciousness in this body, this Paramatma is conceived of permeating the consciousness of the whole universe, isn't it? The Paramatma is present. Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindam Adipurusham Tamam Bhajami. The Lord is present within the heart of every living entity as well as in each and every atom. His consciousness, His supreme consciousness is filling the entire universe. The Lord is conscious of the whole universe. It is as if the whole universe is like His body. So some yogis who are not yet sufficiently mature, they are able to relate to that concept better. And for them, that kind of a meditation is accepted by the Lord as a way of extricating oneself from the materialistic tendencies, from Rajogun, Tamogun, coming higher, and also gradually giving up the enjoyment propensity and making advancement in spiritual life. So in the second chapter, the Lord, Shukadev Goswami actually, picking up from there, he gives an example. He starts this chapter by telling Parikshit Maharaj that do not think that this process of Virat Rupa doesn't work. Lord Brahma, before manifesting this cosmos, had become forgetful. But he regained his consciousness and regained all his knowledge of creation by meditating on the Virata Rupa form of the Lord, and in that way he pleased the Lord. And because of that, he was able to rebuild the creation again. So there is a historical precedent of how the meditation on the Virata Rupa helps the conditioned, forgetful soul to become aware and conscious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in that manner become charged. Because when the Lord is seen as present within the whole universe, one's perspective of looking at things changes. One understands everything as belonging to the Lord. Gradually, one is able to appreciate that. One is able to see Krishna indirectly everywhere. So there is some value in that meditation also. So having established that there was a precedent to this, Shukadev Goswami goes on to say that, Parikshit Maharaj, please understand, what I am trying to tell you now is about transcendental realization, which is the actual fruit of Vedic literatures. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam. I want to give you the real fruit. But the sad thing, Parikshit Maharaj, is that the vast majority of people are simply attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas. Krishna mentions this also in the Bhagavad Gita, that people get attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas. What do they get attracted to? They get attracted to the rituals and the description of the heavenly planets. And they get excited. Yes, this is the goal of religion. This is the goal of spirituality, to attain the heavens. And do what? And to enjoy better. Dev Goswami is saying, no. All this kind of attraction for heavenly pleasure and all that is actually very insignificant. Actually, it is meaningless. Why it is meaningless? Because actually all this happiness is still a sensual happiness. It may just be more in intensity, but ultimately it is still superfluous or external to the real nature of the soul. It cannot satisfy the real nature of the soul. And that is why even the devatas are in anxiety, even with so much enjoyment. Even they are suffering, because all these pleasures, no matter how intense, if they are based on the mind and the senses, they cannot actually touch the soul. And that is why for a person who is actually spiritually wise, he doesn't get distracted. He is able to fix himself on the spiritual path. He is not distracted by these flowery words, because he knows that these kind of description in the Vedas are meant for the less intelligent people who are unable to become serious about spiritual life. At least it helps those people to remain within the framework of religious pious life. So that is good. But that is not the goal of religion. Even the animals and the birds and the other insects on this planet are able to enjoy sometimes sense gratification much more than what human beings can. So does it mean that kind of a life form is desirable? No. those who are serious about spiritual life must accept willingly the principle of simple thinking and high living. He should not be keen to gather, accumulate much more than they need, because then one gets distracted from the real goal of life. So here Shukdev Goswami is giving an example of those who are really, really serious about spiritual life, the great yogis, the transcendentalists. What is their vision towards the material world? And they feel so strongly about spiritual advancement that they are unwilling to, in their words, waste time on gathering material things. And a beautiful example is given. Shukdev Goswami says, when there is the earth to lie down on, what is the need for beds and cots? When one can use one's arms as a pillow, what is the need for a pillow? When one can use the cup of his hands to eat and drink, what is the need for vessels? There is so much in nature in the form of fruits and other eatables. What is the need? Even cloth is available. Even lying down on the streets. Rivers are there to give water. If somebody wants a shelter, there are the caves of mountains also. And above all, the real shelter for those who have taken to the spiritual life is the Almighty Lord, because He is the real protector and provider of everybody. He is Vishwambhara. He is Bhaktavatsal. So devotees who take shelter, why are they so worried about how the Lord will take care of them materially? There is no need. Whatever basic things we need are easily available. There is no need to put extraneous endeavor. And what is the need for those who are learned sages to go and chase behind wealthy people and flatter them? Sometimes, it is observed that so-called people who are dressed in garb of renunciates, but they are still running behind rich people because they want their money. And Shukdev Goswami says, why? Why should learned sages go and flatter those who are intoxicated by their wealth? Because ultimately Krishna is protecting and providing. That is the truth. Once I was very worried about a particular situation. I was in great difficulty, and I was talking to my spiritual master, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and seeing myself very worried, he looked at me in a very concerned way and in a very serious voice. He told me, Gaurachandra, why are you so worried? Krishna is providing food, shelter, even for the birds who don't do any devotional service. Will He not take care of His devotee? Very beautiful statement. I somehow, it stuck so much to me. I always remember that when I, get overwhelmed with adversity. Yes, Krishna is there to protect. And those who are cognizant of this fact, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana paripasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyam. I carry whatever they need and I protect what they have. So, Shukdev Goswami is saying, no need to worry. Why should those who are serious yogis be worried about such things? Rather, they should spend their time and energy in meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of the Paramatma. The Lord is all present. At the same time, He's manifesting as the Paramatma within the heart. That same Lord with His full potency. And He should be made as the goal of our life. We must work towards Shreyas, our ultimate benefit, and not preyas, which is just the immediate benefit in this world. Because all immediate material benefit will be lost. If not now, if not after 10 years, if not after 40 years, if not after 100 years, definitely with death, everything will be taken away. So an intelligent man is focused on Shreyas. He will do some things what is necessary, but he tries to minimize over endeavor and unnecessary endeavor, and definitely doesn't want to be distracted by materialistic goals, even those which are mentioned in the Vedas, because those kind of goals are mentioned in the Vedas for less intelligent materialistic people. And Shukdev Goswami says that only foolish people will get attracted to such materialistic pursuits, because what are these material things? This whole material world is a temporary manifestation. Everything in this material world is ultimately unreal in the sense that it is temporary. Everything will disappear and disintegrate. Things have come together and given a particular form. Even this body, what is it? It is just the coming together of certain elements and coming together and forming a body. It will eventually dissolve. This body is nothing but just a name attached to it. And eventually that identity will dissolve, because the soul is only temporarily inhabiting that body. The body itself is just a temporary combination of chemicals. It is the soul which is real, the soul which is the source of consciousness. So materialistic people who are in illusion, they are continuously suffering in this way because of their continuing karma. And why their karma is continuously continuing? It is continuing because they have not given up a fruitive mentality, which means they want to enjoy the world. So Shukdev Goswami goes on to say, I described earlier that some people worship the Lord and meditate on Him as the Virata Rupa. But there is another category of people who are also transcendentalists, who are generally a bit higher. They prefer to worship and meditate on the Lord in His aspect of Paramatma, because Paramatma is a spiritual form of the Lord, unlike the Virat Rup, which is a materially conceived form of the Lord. And then Shukdev Goswami goes on to describe the beautiful form of the Lord who is situated in the heart of every living entity. The scriptures give a beautiful description that this Paramatma who is situated in the heart, He is roughly the size from the ring finger tip to the base of the thumb. It's around 8 inches in height. And is very, very beautiful and attractive. How does he look? He has 4 arms carrying the lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a rathanga, a shankha, and a gada. And he has such a blissful smile. His mouth and face expresses his unlimited joy. His eyes are beautiful and elongated like the petals of a lotus flower. And his garments are yellowish. What kind of yellow? What shade of yellow? Shukdev Goswami also gives the exact shade of the color. It is like the saffron color of a kadamba flower. So if you do not know what a saffron color of a kadamba flower looks like, then probably later you can go to Google and you can check. Kadamba is a very sweet, very different kind of flower, a very sweet kind of flower. So one can go there and have a look to see what kind of beautiful saffron color it is, yellowish saffron color, which the Lord wears as his dress, Pitambara. And he is decorated with very beautiful, valuable jewels. Jewels and ornaments made of gold studded with beautiful jewels. He has a beautiful helmet. He has beautiful earrings which are shaped like a shark. And the yogis see the lotus feet of the Lord placed on a lotus of their heart. The yogis meditate on the Lord as if he is standing on the lotus of their heart. Why it is considered the heart as a lotus? Because the purified heart blossoms like a lotus. The Lord doesn't come and sit and be an easy object of meditation for those whose minds are impure. No. One has to make one's mind sumana. Sumana means flower. Sumana also means a beautiful, purified mind. Sumana. So when the mind becomes sumana, like a flower, like a lotus flower, it opens and blooms, becomes fragrant, the Lord will come and stand on it with his beautiful forearmed. So beautiful. On his chest is the beautiful famed Kaustuba Mani, on which the form of a calf is engraved. There are jewels and ornaments on his shoulders. He's wearing beautiful fresh flower garland, the Vaijayanti Mala. There's a beautiful decorated cloth around his waist. There are rings in all his fingers which are embedded with jewels. He has dark, beautiful, curling black hair. And a very interesting description the Bhagavatam gives. His hair is oiled. So apparently, the Lord also puts oil in his hair. And that curling, beautiful hair has a bluish tint. It's not described why it has a bluish tint. I do not know whether it is because of his bluish complexion which gets reflected. But his hair seems to have a bluish tint. And he has a very beautiful smile. It is said, whoever sees the smiling face of the Lord becomes free from all material miseries. One must meditate on the Lord like this. As far as possible, as far as the mind can fix itself, the yogi must meditate on this form without deviation. That is the objective. In fact, that is the objective of dhyana. And the ultimate goal of that dhyana is samadhi, full uninterrupted absorption in the transcendental form of the Paramatma. And that is why this whole process of yoga is given. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana. Slowly starting with physical rules and regulations and physical exercises, breathing exercises. One gradually starts the process of pratyahar, or withdrawing the material senses from sense objects, and starts focusing one's consciousness on the transcendence. This kind of a preparation is necessary for those who are not devotees. Because the mind which is so naturally, materially absorbed, how will it easily be able to focus on the Paramatma within the heart? If any of us also were to try, some people say we are doing dhyan, we are doing dhyan. But what is dhyan? Dhyan means focusing on this Paramatma in the heart as what has been described. As far as yoga is concerned, that is dhyan. Different other traditions may call different things in dhyan, but as far as dhyan, which leads to spiritual realization, God realization, is the process of meditating. It is not about emptying the mind. It is not just about focusing on the breath. Those other processes may have some other benefits, but those will not lead one to the supreme realization of the personality of Godhead. Then Shukadeva Goswami continues to describe what is that process of meditation. This is the form, but how should one meditate? One should start meditating on the Lord by first meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. It's a process even for meditation. One shouldn't go and straight away stare at the face of the Lord, because the Lord is so respectable. One starts by humbly looking at his lotus feet and meditating on them. Gradually, one starts meditating on the Lord's calves, then on his thighs, waist, abdomen, chest, and then eventually coming to the lotus face. That is the respectful and appropriate way of meditating. And as one progresses his meditation higher and higher on the form of the Lord, it is said more and more the intelligence of the living entity becomes purified. So for many of us who are not very purified, we should focus our attention more on meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. The lotus feet of the Lord are shelter giving for all living entities. So one must do that. So he describes this process of meditation, and then essentially two processes are described in this chapter. There are quite a few technicalities. If you read this chapter by yourself, you will find it a bit more difficult to understand. So I'm going to summarize rather than go exactly verse by verse because it's a bit more harder to understand. It is said, if one is free from all material desires, then through this process of meditation, one is actually able to spiritualize his mind intelligence and manifest his true spiritual nature and ultimately attain a nature which is qualitatively equivalent to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fully transcendental. In that state, the devotee who has fully removed all hankering for material things, he takes full shelter of the Lord. And in such a state, what does he do? If he is fully pure, then in this meditative process, the recommended system is that one must, using one's life air, the prana in the body. It is said that the Atma is floating within the pranas. Floating within the pranas. So the pranas, it is said at the time of death, the soul leaves the body along with the pran. Correct? We say when a person has died, pran chale gaye, which means the pran has gone. That's why the body is dead. It doesn't move because pran is what gives, causes motion, causes movement. So prana, when it leaves the body, the soul goes along with the prana out of the body. And the prana typically leaves along with the soul from different parts of the body. There are 9 holes in the body. If the prana along with the soul leaves from the lower part of the body through the anus or genitals, it is said that the soul goes towards the lower adha yoni. If he leaves through the mouth or the nose, it is said one can remain in the earthly planets. If it leaves through the eyes, then one can achieve a higher Swargaloka planet. But the yogi is keen, especially the yogi who is free from all material desires, is keen to go to the transcendental world. He doesn't want another birth here. So he fully spiritualizes his mind and intelligence, destroys all his material desires, and he's requested to raise his prana up to here first, steadily focused on the Lord, in the Bhruvar Madhye. This process was the Shata Chakra Yoga, the 6 chakras from Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipur, Anahat, and so on and so forth. Up to here, and then after having fixed here and become free from all material desires, it is said that one must force, by closing all the other holes of the body, one must force the pran to come out from the Brahmarandhra, the top of the head, which is considered the Sahasradhala Chakra, the Shata Chakra Yoga system. And this is a description of the traditional yoga system, wherein the purified yogi leaves through by rupturing the skull. Of course, rupturing is, it doesn't explode his head. It's a small aperture from which the prana also leaves and the soul also leaves. When the yogi is able to leave his body in this way, he can transcend the material world and attain the transcendental. He goes from dhyana to samadhi and achieves the supreme destination. At least he will achieve Brahman realization by going beyond material world. But if he has devotion in his heart, So sometimes there are some yogis, especially in ancient times, who were also devotees of the Lord, but they were sages who were fond of meditative process. If they have devotion, they can actually achieve the Vaikuntha planets also through the process of this Ashtanga Yoga, where there is so much devotion also for the Supreme Lord. That is also. But then there is another point which Shukadeva Goswami mentions. He says, if a yogi who is following either the process of the Virata Rupa meditation, typically yogis who are not so mature follow the process of Virata Rupa meditation, they are not qualified to actually immediately achieve the transcendental Dham. Or even those yogis who, even though not fully purified, take up to Ashtanga Yoga, take up to the process of Dhyan on the Paramatma, but still, even after performing Dhyan on Paramatma, they have not been able to fully purify them of all material desires. It is said, even if there is a little lingering of material desire, it will keep the soul bound to the material world. So even after following this process, if a person has some material desire, then one doesn't immediately go to the spiritual world, even though he leaves. But he goes through a process which is called as Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti means because he is like 97, 98% there, he is a little bit short. 97, 98, I'm just giving an example. I do not know how much percentage that will be, but he has come quite close. Of course, he doesn't have any gross material desires, but there are some subtle desires which are still sticking on. Then he is not qualified to transcend. Such yogis take the path of Krama Mukti. Now that Krama Mukti is also described in this chapter. So I'm going to just summarize that Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti means Mukti in steps, which means the yogi, after he leaves his body through this yogic process, doesn't immediately go to the transcendental realm. He first achieves what is known as the Vaishwanara Loka. Vaishwanara is the planet where the deity of fire, Agni, is predominating. It is said he goes there first, and there he becomes cleansed of most of his contamination. And from there, after being purified, he continues further on to go to higher and higher realms, where he comes to a place which is known as the circle of Shishumar. And to go there, he has to practically cross. Bhagavatam Prabhupada translates it as Milky Way. He has to cross across the Milky Way galaxy and go on the other side to the center of the universe. In fact, this place of Shishumar, which is sometimes compared to the location of the pole star, it is said to be the center of the universe. It is said to be the pivot around which the universe revolves. And is also compared to the navel of Lord Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Actually, in this place of Shishumar is where the Lord resides in his form of Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the ocean of milk. So that Kshirodakshay Vishnu's residence on Shvetadvipa is at this place. And this place is also coinciding with the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. The description. From there, he continues to go beyond from Shishumar Loka, and he attains the Mahar Loka. Mahar Loka is the place where great sages like Bhrigu Muni stay. The duration of life on such planets like Mahar Loka is just unimaginably high. 4.3 billion years of Earth is the life of living entities on the Mahar Loka. It's so purified, that planet, and so pure, even greatly saintly people adore and worship this planet. And from there, he goes to Brahma Loka. This is the planet of Brahma. This place is extraordinary. Brahmaloka is so subtle. It is practically almost close to the spiritual realm. It is a place which is free from all the miseries. The description of the Bhagavatam is in the place of Brahmaloka, there is so much purity that a person is free from almost all material miseries. The only little feeling of pain which is there in Brahmaloka is the feeling of compassion that these great souls on Brahmaloka feel for those living entities like us who are suffering in this world, forgetful of their real identity. That is practically the only misery that they feel. The misery of feeling some pinch because of their compassion for other living entities. At this place of Brahmaloka, so it is said at the end of every creation, Ananta Shesha, on whose hoods all the planetary systems are lying, it is said fire comes out from Ananta and all the planets are annihilated at the end of Brahma's life. It is said at that time, these yogis who are in Brahmaloka, they actually take up the spiritual process of freeing themselves from the subtler and subtler elements so that they can transcend this world and actually go to the spiritual world. It is said they gradually wind up the elements by merging one into the other. It's a technical process. I'm not going to go into very great details. So they slowly purify and dissolve the grosser elements and go into subtler and subtler and subtler. Because the subtler elements produce the grosser elements. They reverse and start dismantling all material aspects of their identity until they become fully purified. Even the false ego is ultimately merged into the Mahat Tattva, which merges into the Pradhan, and that also is given up. And the soul heads straight for the spiritual realm. That is the path that these yogis who are not so purified take. Krama Mukti, they gradually achieve that purification. Yeah, from Vaishvanara Loka to Shushumara to Maharloka to Brahma Loka. Then by piercing the various coverings of the universe and becoming free from one layer after another, they actually are able to transcend and go beyond the Pradhan into the Brahma Jyoti, and if they are devotees, even beyond that. So these two technical processes are explained. Either direct liberation through meditation, which is free from all material desires, or Krama Mukti, which is either beginning with Virata Rupa meditation or Paramatma meditation, which is mixed with material desire. After giving this elaborate description, it's quite technical actually. After giving this elaborate description, a very beautiful statement is made by Shukadeva Goswami. So after this elaborate description, you'll feel, oh my God, this is so painful, this is so complicated, this is so difficult. So to give us the right direction, Shukadeva Goswami says, while I have described these two paths, because some people are attached to these kind of processes, I have described these two paths. But I want to tell you, in verse 33, after describing all this, Shukadeva Goswami says, I have described all this because you asked me. But now I will personally tell you that Lord Brahma, he's thoroughly, scrutinizingly studied all the Vedic scriptures 3 times. And he has come to the conclusion, and he has very clearly said, that ultimately the highest perfection of religion is attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And that is why, even though all these other processes are there for those who do not have that attraction, the highest auspiciousness can be achieved, the highest deliverance from the material world can be achieved simply by devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti is capable and powerful enough to take one beyond without taking up all these mechanical processes. And that is recommended. And that is considered even by Brahmaji, who's the first living entity within this universe, as the best. And the Lord is always our well-wisher. He will guide us and He will give us proper intelligence. In fact, the Lord is so kind to all living entities and especially kind to His devotees, because He says, Tesham aham samuddarta mrityu samsara vartmani bhavamina achirat partha maya veshita chetasam. This Krama Yoga path is so painful. Sorry, painful is probably not the right word, but so prolonged, in that sense painful, because it takes so long to achieve perfection. Practically from this description, the journey, the way it is given, is not just many lifetimes, but even after the yogi leaves the body, having mastered the process, even if he has a little bit material desires, it takes still billions of years for him to transcend. Because he has to go from Vaishwanara to Shishumara, to Maharloka, to Satyaloka, and then gradually transcend. But a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those who are always eager to hear, glorify, and remember the Personality of Godhead, they are the real fortunate people, because Krishna says, I personally deliver them very quickly from the cycle of birth and death. Tesham aham samuddarta. The others take long because they try to take their own path out. But Krishna has the hidden doors open. And he has his Vaikuntha Airlines. So he will send his Vishnu Dutas on his Vimana to escort the living entity back home, back to Godhead very quickly. That is why, Parikshit Maharaj, it is very essential to take to the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. One must always chant, hear, and remember the Personality of Godhead. That is the fastest process. And those who adopt this process, even if they are not very purified in the beginning, the process of bhakti itself is so powerful that very swiftly it will purify this contaminated goal of material enjoyment, and very quickly one can attain the highest goal of Prema Bhakti, which is not just going beyond birth and death, but actually attaining direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where in a spiritual form one can directly associate with the Lord, interact with the Lord, and render loving service to Him and experience a rasa, a taste, a pleasure, which one can never ever experience. And it is that taste, it is that pleasure, which is ultimately the deepest, the source of the deepest satisfaction. So, Shukadeva Goswami ends the chapter on that note, while through the chapter he gives broadly 3 processes. He expresses the Virata Room meditation, which is actually more of a jnana process. Then he explains, and he says, just by jnana one cannot attain perfection. Usually the jnanis still struggle to be free from material desires. Then he describes the process of dhyan on the transcendental form, which he says is also powerful and in fact is better at dissolving all material desires and achieving at least Brahman realization, and with devotion, even the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then he talks about the topmost yoga. That yoga is topmost because it is so powerful, the yoga of bhakti, that the yoga of bhakti itself can burn away all other materialistic tendencies in the heart and deliver the yogi to the topmost destination of the lotus feet of the. That brings us to the end of the chapter, 944, the fastest closure of a chapter. So there are a lot of technicalities here. I've not gone through each and every technicality. One of the things mentioned in this chapter is also that on Brahmaloka, which is also sometimes known as Satyaloka, the duration of life go there. around 15.48 trillion years. 15.48 trillion years. Amazing. The duration of life on Satyaloka. So ultimately, the lesson is that do not hanker. What to speak of material pursuits in this world? Those are anyway condemned right in the beginning of this chapter. But even the other higher planets and even all these other places, ultimately the real deepest satisfaction is available only when the real dharma of the soul is manifested. And the real dharma of the soul is Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. The real nature of the soul is to eternally be a servant of Krishna. And how is that dharma awakened? Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karahe Uday. That love is already in the heart, it has to be awakened. And how is it awakened? Shravan Adi Shuddha Chitte, when one repeatedly hears and chants the glories of the Lord. Just like a person who has forgotten, sometimes, some people get amnesia. Amnesia means they totally forget who I am, who are my relatives, where I am from, I'm forgetful. So sometimes to bring back their memory, what is done? They're taken back to the places where they were staying. And they are told about so many things about their identity and what happened to them in their life and the places and all that. So hearing of Hari Katha, Hari Kirtan is like that for the soul who has become forgetful. Because that is the real nature of the soul, and the soul eternally has a relationship with the Lord. When he hears about the relationship, when he hears about the glories of the Lord, when he hears about the nature of the soul, slowly that spiritual memory which has become currently dormant and in a sleeping state becomes gradually awakened. Like an alarm clock, spiritual alarm clock. Shravanam Kirtanam. So that is the most powerful and recommended way. Okay. So with that I will stop. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Okay. I'm opening the floor to any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So Prabhuji, you had mentioned that the yogis, who transcend the material world, exit the body, through by creating a rupture at the top of the head, and they transcend the material world and go into the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
So devotees, pure devotees, who are able to transcend the material world and go back home, back to Godhead, do they also exit the body by creating a rupture in the head, or this is only the mechanical process, not applicable for devotees?
Not necessarily. In my understanding, it is not necessary. They may leave from there, they may not leave from there. Those who are pure devotees are not dependent on the ordinary course of events.
Okay, so just like the Lord mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that these mechanical processes are not applicable for devotees. Even these rules are not applicable for pure devotees, is it? Okay.
To force the soul from the head out, one requires immense amount of mastery on the pranas and meditative process through the Shata Chakra Yoga. So a devotee is already, through his devotion, he has already spiritualized everything, that he becomes a Jivan Mukta even when he is here. So Rupa Goswami gives that description, that he who is living in this world but who is dedicated himself, Karmana Vacha Gira, through body, mind and word, one is dedicated to the Supreme Lord, Nikhilasu api avasthasu Jivan Mukta Sauchate. In spite of what all he is engaged in externally, he is still considered liberated even in this body, even at this time. That kind of a state is very hard for the others to attain. So it is not necessary for the bhakta to leave his body through a mechanical process from the head. Yes, some bhaktas may be doing it, that is possible, but it is not a necessary condition.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, welcome. So many processes are being described, but one must understand that while so many technicalities are being described, the way we should look at these technicalities are, one should understand, wow, Krishna has made it actually so easy for me. I don't have to go through such a difficult process. This is the lesson we should learn. We may not understand also all the technicalities that are described. Merging the mind into the intelligence into the ego into the pure self and all. If you read some of these verses, you'll start thinking, I cannot even fathom what it means. Forget about practicing it. How am I ever going to get to doing something like this? But again and again, in the Bhagavad, Shukdev Goswami brings our attention to the point that I'm describing these as paths because these are valid processes. But by describing them, you must understand how challenging they are. And why others are following that? Why do they have to follow that? Because they are falling short somewhere. They are falling short somewhere, because of which they cannot take the simple process. The process is simple, at the same time it is difficult. Bhakti is simple, but it is difficult. Simple because anybody can do it, but difficult because not everybody has enough love and attachment to the Supreme Lord. Not everybody has the mood of Sharanagati. People still have selfish motivations, and that is why they are forced to take such processes, because they are unable to come to the point of surrendering to the Lord in humility. They are unable to appreciate the value of aspiring for eternal devotional service to the personality of Godhead. That itself is a great gift. And that gift is received when one associates with those who have that aspiration. When one associates with the pure devotees and is connected to the pure devotees in parampara, then one receives that seed and becomes fortunate. And when we become fortunate like that, when we develop that faith, that Shraddha, then when we water that Shraddha with the water of Shravanam and Kirtanam, one can evolve higher and higher and ultimately attain the supreme destination. Anybody has any other point to add or comments? Anybody wants to say? Haribol Kaumadaki Mataji, nice to see you. How are you?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, fine, thank you.
Hari, so happy to see you are here. I noticed a couple of times you are there, I couldn't speak. Are you alone, or is Sudarshan Prabhu also there?
He just went up, Prabhu.
Okay, convey my respects to him also.
Yeah, definitely, Prabhu. How are you?
I am okay.
Okay.
Nice to see you all. Hari. Upendra Prabhu, do you want to say anything?
Hare Krishna. I have nothing to say. Only thing is about bhaktas going, following that process. For devotees, there is no process. The Vimana comes and takes them.
Correct. Yes.
Aeroplane comes and takes them. That is, of course, from Dhruva's example, Prahlad's example, and even recent Tukaram's example.
Correct.
So
Correct.
there is no process like that. Just Viman comes, you sit and go.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We had discussed this earlier also in some classes where, we gave the example that normally for us, if we want to go to US, we have to go buy ticket, apply visa, go to airport, go through security, check in. So many formalities we have to go through. The whole process we have to understand and follow the process, sit in the plane with the boarding card. So many things before we reach the destination. But imagine if we are friends and very dear to, let's say, Mr. Trump. Let's say we are going to America as an example. Some people don't like Trump, that's okay. But I'm just giving an example. And he says, hey, don't worry. I'm sending my own private jet to you. And you have full direct access, no need visa. You will have special diplomatic access. I will come and pick you up. So the helicopter comes, picks you up from the terrace of your house, transfers you to a plane, Neither do you have to bother about the ticket or the visa or nothing. You don't have to look up everything. You are transported directly to the White House, to the guest room. So that is how the Lord is. He will arrange it out of His love. He will arrange. He says, you don't bother. Because you have made, the way the Lord thinks is, because you are living for me, it is now my responsibility to make sure whatever are your concerns, material and spiritual, are my problems. He takes it upon himself. And that happens because the devotee takes that mood of shelter and dependence. Isham aham samuddarta mrityu samsarvartmani vamina chirat partha. Also, ananyas chintayanto. Those are ananya. They don't have any other goal. Their goal is serving Krishna. Krishna says, oh, their goal is me. Then I have to take care of their other interests also, no? So that is how the Lord looks at it. So he's especially kind. So for those who are fortunate enough to develop faith in the process of bhakti, they should not worry about all other things, because the most capable person and the most powerful person is worrying about them. And this we see throughout the scriptures, like Upendra Prabhu was giving so many examples, whether it is Dhruva, you see Prahlad, you see Tukaram Maharaj in recent times, and so many others. The Lord arranged whatever was needed, both materially and spiritually. Take care of them. Yeah. Thank you, Upendra Prabhu. Anyone else? Anything? Okay. If nothing else, thank you all. Nice seeing all of you. Of course, most of all I cannot see. I can only see your names. So it is nice if you can flash up so I can see you if you are okay. Otherwise, it's okay. No force. Okay, sorry. Shraddha ji had asked one question. I forgot just now, remembered. She asked about why some people in a family become devotees, some do not become devotees. So becoming devotees is actually a very personal thing. Manushyanam sahasreshu kasyad yatati siddhe. What to speak of devotee, even being inclined towards spiritual life is a very personal thing, which comes to a living entity who is in a high state of spiritual evolution in their journey in this material world. Hari bol. Santa can see Santanam Prabhu, like a full moon in the night sky, shining. Hare Krishna. So, it is a very individual thing. Spiritual life is about one's willingly taking shelter of the Lord by realizing the futility of material existence and the ultimate benefit of taking shelter of the Lord. So, it may or may not happen that all of our members of our family may be devotees. Ashwin, Haribol, nice to see you.
Haribol, Prabhuji.
So nice to see you. Haribol, Haribol, Suresh Prabhu. Haribol, Shalini ji.
Krishna Prabhuji.
In the front, Hare Krishna. Yes. So Krishna is saying that those who are very fortunate and already very advanced from previous lives, they get the fortune to be in a family where everybody is devotee. That is an attainment of a blessing, that one becomes born in a family of devotees. Of course, sometimes one is born, sometimes eventually all the members of the family become devotees. That may also happen. But in our own observation, since you have mentioned this point, just want to add something, and Upendra Prabhu can add if he wants. Usually, our observation is when one member of the family, Neha ji, Hare Krishna, I'm finally seeing Neha. Very well. The point is when one member of the family sincerely takes to the process of Krishna Bhakti. See, Krishna Bhakti is so special amongst all the other processes of yoga that Krishna has explicitly said in the Bhagavad as well as other scriptures that what to speak of the devotee, being dear to me. There is no question of even asking that question. Even those who are dear to my devotee become dear to me. You understand? Krishna says, not just my devotee is dear to me, but those who are dear to my devotees are dear to me, and I start taking care of them also. And that is Krishna's special favor. This kind of favor is not easily available to other category of yogis. So because of that favor and because of the strong sadhana and practice and the prayers of the devotee, in our own experience, we have seen that slowly over time, in many families, many other members of the family also become attracted to the Lord in due course and actually become devotees. That has been consistently observed in many places. It may not always be the case, because ultimately every living entity has their own free will. If the living entity doesn't want to surrender, what can we do? But the Lord definitely gives special facility and special blessings. So that is the special blessing. So while we are practicing, if our other family members may not yet be so awake to spiritual realization, we should continue our practice with intensity, and at the same time encourage and pray for our other family members. And in due course, those prayers will bear fruit. When Prahlad Maharaj was saved by Lord Narasimha, and Prahlad Maharaj repeatedly, Lord Narasimha asked Prahlad, please ask for a benediction, please ask for a benediction. Prahlad said, I don't want, I am not here to do business with you. What is this? I have done bhakti and now I'm asking from you. I'm feeling like, I'm feeling as if I'm doing business. I don't want to ask. But finally Narasimhadev said, no, you ask, because if you ask something, I'll become happy. Because the Lord wanted to give. Correct? Sometimes we just want, we want our children to ask something from us. Ask what you want. So he was doing, okay. So the Prahlad said, okay, because you will be happy, I will ask something. But even after that, he didn't ask for himself. He said, if you want to give something, you liberate my father. Even though my father has tried in so many ways to kill me, he's my father. I feel affection towards him. He has taken care of me in whatever way, even though he may have been so cruel. So please give your blessings to my father and free him from all his. So Narasimhadev says something very beautiful when he hears that from Prahlad. He says, Prahlad, you don't even have to ask for this. Even before you have asked, I have already given liberation to your father. I'm not even waiting for you to ask. Because he is your father. And Prahlad, not just that, not just your father. Do you know, when a person becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, 21 generations of that pure devotee are liberated by me. 21 generations. Lord Narasimha says this in the Bhagavad. There is an explicit verse. I'm not making this up. 21 generations are liberated. So he says, you don't worry. Just because you are affectionate to them, I am taking care of them. You don't even have to ask. Of course, if you ask is also nice. But he tells him, for you, you don't even have to ask. I'm doing it. That is the power. We may not be on the level of Prahlad to deliver 21 generations. But even if we become serious devotees, we can definitely have a significant positive influence in the spiritual evolution of those who are immediately connected to us. Yeah? Okay, I hope that answers your question. Hare Krishna. And anyway, your wonderful daughter is also so spiritually inclined like you. So I'm very inspired to hear how enthused she is to hear the classes. So thank you, Neha. So nice to see your enthusiasm. I think she's still I think she's probably dropped off. So convey my appreciation to her. Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, so thank you all very much, and I'll see you on. Okay, so one point for those who are attending the Wednesday class, I just want to ask, since we have actually completed the Wednesday course, okay, since most of you are also in the Wednesday class, I just wanted to know there are two options. One is we discontinue the Wednesday class and we only do the Bhagavatam on Saturday. The other option is on Wednesday, we can, now that we have completed the overview course on Bhagavad Gita, we can go into a detailed study of Bhagavad Gita in terms of the sequence of verses, just like we are doing the Bhagavad, but in a bit more detail, not literally chapter by chapter, because we have already done that, but go into, maybe we cover 3-4 verses from the Bhagavad Gita every week and slowly, progressively give. So, let me know if that is what you want to do. Either way, I'm okay.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can have that session on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, Prabhuji, this is Vishal here. Can we change the timing of Wednesday, because that's my office timing and lots of calls. Like I'm back-to-back calls during that time, so I'm not able to attend. Is there possibility?
Wednesday, 6. Okay, for India. No, the problem is because I'm in the Malaysia time zone. The challenge is that anything beyond this is too late for me, because for me this class is 9 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Oh yes.
So start later, it will go even beyond that, so it becomes too late. So what? Yeah. So my suggestion is that anyway we are uploading also those classes if you are unable to attend. But yeah, actually I'm keeping the class late on the weekday and also on Saturday, because then everybody can attend. The problem is if I keep it too early, for some countries it goes into an odd time zone. We had previously some devotees who were connecting from UK also, so that is why I did not want to keep in the afternoon. Then it gets too early for them in the morning. So I was trying to adjust. So finally I felt that this is this time covers the majority of the time zones that we want to address, but it's definitely not ideal. I know it is just around 6:30, it is just after office hours. I understand that. Later will be more difficult for most of those who are in the Malaysia zone. Yeah, which is the majority. Yes. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. So we can, anyway, you have also already gone through our full detailed Gita. Most of it, right? If not the whole thing, I think. Yeah, but anyway, it'll be nice. So the recordings will also be there in the channel, so you can listen to them as well.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So do you want, any other opinions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, it's like teachings of Lord Kapila or Kunti Devi's prayers, like start.
Teachings of Queen Kapila, Queen Kunti are actually all parts of the Bhagavad. So teachings of Queen Kunti we already discussed when we discussed the first chapter. Of course, the book by Prabhupada on teachings of Queen Kunti is actually nothing but an elaboration of that chapter and that prayers by Queen Kunti. So in that sense, we have covered the teachings of Lord Kapila. Will be covering as a part of the Bhagavatam discussion itself. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji, whatever.
The
we want
thing,
an association, Prabhuji, nothing else.
Okay. No, because yeah. So what you can do is, you can think over. You can let me know on WhatsApp what is your suggestion. The other option also is to maybe discuss a little bit of nectar of devotion is also possible. But I think there are quite a few new people who have not gone through Bhagavad Gita in detail. But let me know. Yeah. That is another option we can do. We can do Bhagavad Gita, or we can do nectar of devotion, which is about the practice of devotion in more detail. That's also okay. Let me know on the WhatsApp group. Okay, so thank you all very much. Nandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.